call, because the best prices are not online. They're with Smart Fares. See, Smart Fares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use Smart Fares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. Our prices are too low to publish online. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next flight. Let one of our Smart Fares expert travel agents find ridiculously low prices for you. Call Smart Fares today and get the best price on your next flight. Guaranteed. Also, save up to 50% off business and first class tickets.
855-325-1820. 855-325-1820. That's 855-325-1820. Have you ever met a single person in your life that enjoys paying taxes? No, no one does. If you can't sleep at night because you have a huge problem with the IRS, I've got some free advice for you. This service is strictly limited to individuals that owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes. And if you qualify, we can guarantee that you won't be writing a big fat check to the IRS, or our services cost you nothing. The first 100 people that call today will get a free tax consultation worth $500. Stop worrying about your IRS problem. We can help you, we promise. Call the tax doctor right now. I mean right now, to learn more. 800-240-4587. 800-240-4587. 800-240-4587. That's 800-240-4587.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
Why have thousands of aspiring authors teamed up with Christian Faith Publishing to publish their book? Because Christian Faith Publishing is an author-friendly publisher who understands that your labor is more than just a book. We provide authors freedom and flexibility throughout the publishing process, professional book editing, award-winning design, and some of the highest royalty structures in the publishing industry. And as always, you will retain 100% of the rights to your book.
I was looking to find a company that I could trust, one that assisted in the editing process completely.
The most important qualities that I was looking for was a publisher who was honest and upfront, no hidden costs or fees, and owning the rights to my own work.
Christian Faith Publishing will publish, market, and sell your books in all major bookstores, online booksellers, as well as specialty Christian bookstores. Call for your free author submission kit.
800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. That's 800-978-4812.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
Good evening, Johnson County. Welcome to this week's episode of The Breakdown. I'm your host, Greg Cooper, and here on The Breakdown, we deep dive local politics, mainly school board politics and city councils, and any and all Johnson County politics are on the table. We're Mondays at 5 p.m. You can visit the JoCo Community Radio Facebook page to watch shows live or see replays. Also, you can go to the www.jococommunityradio.com, where Apple and Android apps are available Tune in and get the ins and outs of all the ongoings in Johnson County, Texas. So I want to apologize before we get going on our show. Missing last week's show, I had lost my voice. I volunteer at some local baseball, help out at some local baseball games, and I lost my voice. So bear with me. Hopefully it'll last the show. Today's show is going to be a little bit different. We have a no guest today, and we're going to have a brutal, honest conversation about the State of Godley ISD, the state of ISDs in general. And before I go into a big monologue like I normally do, since the whole show will basically be a monologue, we're going to talk about what is the difference between nice and kind. There's a big difference. Nice focuses on what's easier for me. Kind focuses on what will help the other person learn, grow, and improve. Nice doesn't want to rock the boat. Kind may rock the boat and may make people uncomfortable with the subjects being discussed. Nice may feel disingenuous. Kind feels authentic. Nice may lead you to feel taken advantage of, walked all over. Kind, it's more difficult than simply being nice, bottom line. Most people have heard of kind bars, the bars a lot of people eat, the little energy bars. Well, Daniel Lubitsky, the founder of Kind Snacks and the Kind Foundation, has a unique definition of it. We're going to go through some different definitions here of this before we get moving today. His definition is nice means well, but it's not enough. Kind is different. Nice is polite, but it stays out of it. Kind is honest. Kind speaks up. Kind rises to the occasion. Nice doesn't bully, but kind stands up to bullies. Nice is something you say, whereas kind is something you do. I'm going to say that again. Nice is something you say. Kind is something you do. Another definition. Kindness and niceness are in conflict sometimes. Telling a flailing employee that they're flailing with the aim of helping them improve isn't the nicest of things, but it's kind. Nice versus kind. Nice. Many leaders want to be nice. There is something faux admirable in such a pursuit. However, niceness doesn't carry the weight that we think it does. Nice real-world application falls short of the mark when leading effectively or influencing others towards positive accountability or a common destination. On the other hand, kindness provides us with firm application and a benchmark to run towards in our families, organizations, and communities. Nice and kind have come to mean the same thing over the last few hundred years. Initially, nice had a much different, sinister undertone to its meaning. Someone who was nice was thought to be stupid or foolish just a couple hundred years ago. Niceness was to be avoided. So how could these words become almost interchangeable? How can kindness versus niceness offer more profound meaning and more robust relationships? Kind, in practical terms, one of the main differences between niceness and kindness is fear. Fear often comes out in times of conflict and discomfort. Fear breeds niceness because niceness does not seek to hurt anyone's feelings or step on anyone's toes. As a result, conflict becomes avoidable. However, the problem that needs to be dealt with manipulate leaders and their teams from beneath the surface. In contrast, kindness is not afraid to have hard conversations. Kindness is not afraid to tackle the truth. Kindness handles things with a positive attitude and no malicious intent, but knows that without a constructive discussion that seeks to hold the team and their commitments, trust will be lost. And the team will lose their sense of direction, their sense of purpose. This distinction separates kindness from niceness by calling us to action and seeking accountability that does not lead to shame, but a greater sense of self-belief and commitment. The bottom line is the difference between kindness and niceness is truth. Truth in our motivations and truth in our actions. So, why am I proceeding this with nice versus kind today? Well, we're going to have an honest talk as we get ready to go back to school about Godly ISD here. We've had some guests on before, and we've briefly covered some of the quantifiable data and the status of the ISD. And the bottom line is Godly ISD's senior administration and the majority of its elected school board officials are more concerned with being nice than being kind. They're more concerned with not offending and not addressing issues than they are with being kind and addressing such obvious deficiencies. Before I begin to get into these stats, I want to make it very clear. I feel very sorry for a lot of the mid-level administration and teachers within Godly ISD. I go, you are not led by individuals that are setting you up for success, and I'm sorry for that. They are focused more on image, structures, facilities, as opposed to the tools you need to get the best result from society's most precious resources, our children. This is not about teachers. Don't make it about that. This is about the long-standing, long-time senior leadership of Godly ISD and where it has gotten Godly ISD in regards to the state. So we're going to go over a few topics here, and we're going to start with the academic snapshot. The bottom line is Godly ISD performs well behind the state average, well behind the region average, and well behind peer districts. They're not even close. They are well in the bottom 50% of the state in quantifiable measurables. The source for this, if you're so inclined to go look for yourself, and I encourage you to, don't listen to me. Don't hear what I have to say. Go and look for yourself. www.texasschools.gov is a great site that gives a snapshot of every single district in the ISD. There's links there that can go to other snapshots too. But most of this data comes from what is known as the Texas Academic Performance Report, or better known as TAPER. So there's basically a big change that just happened with standardized testing. So up until 2022, there was three main categories for standardized testing. Masters, which should be the goal, that should be the standard. Every single student, every single employee should strive to master the subjects at hand, period. There is a meets the standard. Meeting the standard is the bare minimum of what you should be familiar with, competent in, and then there is an approaching. That is basically a needs to improve. We're not quite there yet. So, where does Godly fall with these? Now, if you listen to Godly ISD's senior leadership, they will tell you consistently across the board, well, we don't teach to the test. Well, we're more than just tests. Well, we're more than that. There's nothing wrong with that. However, this is what the responsibility of being given taxpayer dollars, this is the standard that you're held accountable to. Is there a teacher in Godly ISD that if a student went to them when they failed an algebra test and said, Well, I'm so much more than algebra. Judge me on stuff I do at home, on stuff I do over here. Why are you judging me just on algebra? That's absolutely asinine, and there's nobody that would disagree with that. The state sets standards that public schools are accountable to. These are not my rules. They're not Godly's rules. They're the rules that everybody has to follow. It's an even playing field. Saying that you don't like them does not absolve you for accountability of that. These basic standards encompass the core subjects: reading, math, history, English, science, things like that. Based on the grade, it can go into algebra and biology. But the bottom line is this is the necessary foundation that needs to be laid to set students up for success long term. Talking about a CTE program in about a 4-story building that teaches very, very specialized skills that students may or may not use for the rest of their lives, there's nothing wrong with that. And that is absolutely phenomenal that Godly has something like that and other school districts do. But that does not absolve you of the responsibility of laying the basic foundation for students to succeed across the board further in life. Period. I bring up my military service because it laid the foundation for who I am today. I have 8 deployments. I have friends that had 30 deployments. I was never home for more than 6 or 7 months at a time. And every single time from every deployment, everybody in my unit came home. We did the exact same thing every time. We reset to the basics. We learned how to basically shoot a sidearm, how to basically shoot our primary weapon system, how to basically do medical skills, how to basically understand physical training, all the basics. If we could not master those basics, nothing else mattered. You can wave purple pom-poms, gold pom-poms, all you want, Godly ISD. You can have the best sporting teams out there all you want, and I applaud you because some of your sporting stuff that you have going on there is absolutely outstanding. You can have an awesome CTE thing that kids can go to get some form of a skill that will lead them better in life. However, you cannot fail at the basic foundational skills that is your core mission. So how bad does Godly ISD fail? 2023 results are just beginning to trickle out. The end of course scores have. So for the purpose of this discussion today, without having the K through 8 scores have been being released yet, we're going to have to go back to fiscal year 22. So I'm going to talk about 2 standards here: meets and masters. For all subjects, Godly ISD meets the standard 39% of their students. 39% of the students meet the state standard in Godly ISD for all subjects. Only 16% master. Teachers, you should be beating at the administrator's door, telling them that you need more resources, better curriculum, and better leadership to help you teach these kids. And I'm sorry, like I said before, this is not about teachers. These scores have been here and are across the board year after year after year. That is a foundational leadership problem, not an individual teacher problem. All subjects meets 39%, 16% masters. Science, 40% meets, only 15% masters. This is in science. Social studies, 33%, only 1/3 of Godly ISD students. Again, this is from a .gov website, texasschools.gov. 1/3 meet the standards in social studies. Only 17% master. Reading, basic reading. You can talk CTE all you want. Welding, flower boutique making, primary care for medical, all the different stuff you do. Only 43% are meeting the standard for reading in Godly ISD. Does that make any sense to you to focus and talk so much about a 4-story CTE building that's actually a stadium when only 43% of your students are reading? This is being kind, addressing this, talking about this stuff has to be discussed. It cannot be covered up with fancy stadiums, fancy arenas, and talking about CTE all the time. These are foundational core things that absolutely have to be addressed. Math. Every bit of artificial intelligence will require some form of math. 35% of Godly ISD students meet math standard. 14% master. The closest score is reading. That's 43% to 50%. 7% under 50% meeting the standard in reading. You're failing at your core mission, Godly ISD. 3 more criteria we're going to talk about. Scored at or above the college-ready SAT, ACT, TSIA, or earned credit for a college class. I'll be the first to admit, not everybody will go to college. I'll be the first to admit you can go to a CTE program and get a career. I'll be the first to admit there's a lot of other ways to succeed in life without going to college. However, when only 25% of Godly ISD students can score at or above the college ready for entrance exams or earned college credit for a class, you're leaving too many behind. Too many are being left behind. Your priorities and your focus are out of whack. You can't ignore it. You can't run from it. It is what it is, and it needs to be addressed. AP test, advanced placement. 3% of Godly ISD students met a criteria on an AP test. 3%. Almost a quarter of students in the entire state can meet criteria on an AP test. 3% in Godly ISD. Now, here again, we're going to talk about where the focus is, where the attention to detail is, and what's important to Godly ISD. And I'm going to tell you right now, earned an industry-based certification. I think it's absolutely great, and I wish when I went to school there was a way to earn an industry-based certification. Godly ISD, 67% of graduates graduate with an industry-based certification. Only 19% across the state graduate with an industry-based certification. So out of those 67% that graduate with an industry-based certification, only 35% meet the standard in math, 43% meet the standard in reading, 33% meet the standard in social studies, 40% meet the standard in science, and only 39% in the rest of the subjects. What good does an industry-based certification do if the students end up not following that career path in the future? You have failed to lay the foundational groundwork for them to succeed in other areas. Can you not see this? School's getting ready to start. You can be nice all you want, but it is kind to address these foundational flaws, make a solid effort, raise awareness about it, and begin to have a plan to fix it. What I'm going to tell you, it's not money. It's not money. Money does not buy success, folks. Godly ISD is well below the 50th percentile in the state, period. And well below 50% of their students are meeting the state minimum standards. It's not money. Here again, texasschools.gov, fiscal year 22. Godly receives $15,419 per child. The state average is 13,000. So they receive more. More taxpayer money is going to Godly ISD. But they're doing less with it, and their outcomes are not as good. Well, how much do they spend? Godly ISD spends $17,760 per child. State average is $14,000. So they receive more. They spend more. And their senior administration, because of the focus and direction they have, does not set up students as well as the state average and other districts. Well, what about money they've spent in the past? They just asked for $900 million or more money. So where do they sit? The average school district is in debt $21,106 per enrolled child. $21,100 per enrolled child. Now, I keep talking about enrolled child. Why do I keep talking about enrolled children? The reason I keep talking about enrolled children is because that is a major part of budgeting for school districts. How many kids walk through the door and put their butts in a seat? They need more children to get more money. So everything's based off average daily attendance or weighted average daily attendance. The average school district, again, $21,000 in debt per child. Godly, this is not including the $900 million bond that just failed. $67,000 in debt per child. So they receive more than $2,000 more per child. They spend more than $3,000 more per child. And they're in debt more than $45,000 more per child. You will have a very nice place to watch basketball games. Probably the best in Johnson County and one of the best in the states. You will have a phenomenal place to watch football games from. And great balconies for the godly elite to hobnob on while overlooking the softball and baseball fields and the football fields. Generations will pay for that debt. And because of what they spent that money on in the 2021 bond, they need more money. $45,000 more per child. However, that's 2022 data. What is known as the brb.texas.gov website, which tracks debt for municipalities, has been updated. And Godly ISD is actually $87,000 in debt per child. $87,000. Seriously, folks, go to www.data.brb.texas.gov and manipulate that website to find Godly ISD, and you will find bar graphs. And if you mouse over those bar graphs, it will tell you how much in debt Godly ISD is per child. And it's $87,568. They currently owe $210,310,000 of principal, and they currently owe $162,000 in interest. So Godly ISD right now sits at $372,843,000 of debt. Now, it's one thing to come out here and throw numbers around, but how about we talk about other ISDs and see where they're at with debt? Well, Aledo ISD. Godly's at $372 million. Aledo's at $270 million. Godley ISD's at 372 million. Burleson ISD's at 295 million. Godley is at 372 million. Granbury, 85 million. Godley's at 372 million. Weatherford is at 96. Godley ISD's at 372 million. Joshua, 89 million. They just asked you for 900 million more. They spend more, they receive more, they're in debt more, and they want more, and they do less with it. Wait till you hear how much we believe godlyisd.com costs when we get back. Breakdown coming back at you in a few moments, folks.
Here's important new information from the Diabetes Solution Center for you, a family member, or a loved one suffering with diabetes. If you have lost your provider, or if you need a provider for diabetic supplies, you may qualify to receive your diabetic testing supplies now with little or no out-of-pocket cost, regardless of your age. All you need is Medicare or private insurance to be potentially eligible. Call the Diabetes Solution Center right now for details. Just takes a couple of minutes. Our friendly, knowledgeable agents will give you free, no-obligation information, handle all the insurance paperwork, and make sure your supplies are delivered directly to your door for free.
Call U.S. Medical Supply 24 hours a day. 800-597-9323. 800-597-9323. 800-597-9323. Call right now. 800-597-9323.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
Welcome back to the Breakdown with your host, Greg Cooper. Airs Monday at 5. Just a quick heads up, we're talking about possibly changing the days. We missed too many school board meetings and we missed too many city council meetings being on Monday. So there may be a change coming up to the time that we host this show. For example, we're missing Joshua ISD's budget workshop right now. And that makes it harder to give you guys a rundown of what's going on. But before we get back into here, I'm going to read through some of the comments here and comment on some of what's posted in the social media here. We want to give a shout out to Joco Community Radio is proud to be the voice of Johnson County, Texas, and is live 24/7 on the TuneIn Radio Network. TuneIn.joco.com is the place to find all the ways to listen and watch, and the station app is also available for free. On Android and Apple devices, simply search your store. Check out our lineup and more at jococommunityradio.com. This episode and more brought to you by the Next Level Claims, making your insurance work for you. Reach out to your Texas sales rep and 844.text.hail. That's 844.839.4245. I think I finally got an appointment for my hail to get fixed after that last major hailstorm we have. But and lastly, be sure to dress your arms and more at thetiffy.com. So we're talking about some of the finances here in Godley ISD. We've got a few comments here. Let's see just real quick what we got going on here. Haven't really interacted. I'm trying to figure this out, but let's see what we have. That's right, D, 39%. Yes, those numbers are absolutely sad. They're horrible. And if you compare them to peer districts and other local districts and other regional districts, you'll find out that they're at the bottom of those districts. This is not, it is fair to say that Texas across the board does not have great scores, but it is also very fair to say that Godley is at the bottom of that. So this is it's not a one-off. And they are absolutely sad. Yes, those scores are correct. And like I said, txschools.gov is where you can find those basic scores. There's other links where you can actually break it down by grade. That's a lot harder to get into here on a radio show. And it is what it is. GISD really hasn't done very much to address the deficit in education. If you go back year after year after year, you'll find out that they are not narrowing the gap across the board with state averages. They do have some areas where there's like little one-offs of improvement here, but at the same time, they have a quantifiable amount of areas where there's also one-offs of where they're getting worse. But consistently, they are performing at a lower level. That's a great point, D, that you bring up. Godley loves to hang their hats on this CTE program. I'm commenting on you have to go to college to be successful, but you better know your ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. If you go to a CTE program, I don't know about any of you guys, but when I was in high school, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, I went back and forth with what I wanted to do with my life. And I'm not doing anything that I thought I would do with my life now. So if I didn't have a basic foundation to fall back on to reattack a career and reattack life, and I didn't have that, I would be behind the power curve, and that would be a much more difficult situation to negotiate. So you're 100% correct, D. You don't have to go to college to be successful, but you darn sure better know your ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. So it opens up doors. It opens up opportunities. It doesn't box you in. And that's what Godley ISD is doing, is they're limiting potential opportunity on the back end. Mr. Sears, let's not talk about the level of influence that parents put in for the kids to be able to get to the point they needed ultimately starts at home. You know, you're 100% right. It absolutely does start at home. And I don't know what Joshua does compared to Godley, but they're across the board about 20 percentage points higher. So you're right. It does start at home, but you can also, unless there's something going on specifically to Godley ISD's footprint that is consistent in those homes and it doesn't spread out from there, then the next question would be, well, why are so many local districts around Godley scoring so much higher? It's a fair question. And doing it with a lot less money. They're receiving less. They spend less, and they're in debt less, and they perform at a higher level. They don't have as nice of a football stadium. They don't have as nice of a basketball arena. They didn't win architectural awards. They didn't do that. But they perform higher. But you're correct. It does start at home. Home does have a part. I would love to see Godley ISD reach out to parents and say, hey, parents, we need your help. We need better buy-in. The majority is a clear picture of, hey, we got everything under control. We got this taken care of. But the bottom line is, when school districts are receiving about $15,000 of taxpayer money, they have an obligation to do their part. And when well under 50% are meeting the standards, yeah, it does start at home. You're right. But they spend a heck of a lot more time at school, 8 hours a day for 13 years. So, yeah, you're right. But you can't absolve the school of fault here. Anyways, let's see if there's any more comments we want to comment real quick before we continue to move on. So I don't know why they do, Ms. Chumtrell. I don't know why they receive more money. I don't know if it's a budget thing. I don't know what it is. I don't know if they, there's so many ways that ISDs receive money. It starts with daily attendance, and then so many 504s, IEPs, GET, special ed. There's so many different ways that they receive more money. I don't know what, that's a much more complicated problem. And I'm not necessarily, don't have a problem with them receiving more money or spending more money or being in debt more, but they should get results for it. One of their biggest excuses is socioeconomically disadvantaged children. Just in neighboring Joshua, Joshua's almost 15 percentage points higher of socioeconomically disadvantaged than Godly. So not even that, explains it. But it's not. I'm not more as concerned with the fact that they're receiving more. I'm more concerned with that they're receiving so much more yet doing so much less with it. That's a great question, Dion, why they're passing everybody. Their graduation rate, they actually get awards for graduating that many kids, but their scores are that low. There's a lot of ways to graduate high school in today's society, and one of them is industry certs. Godly has a huge percentage of industry certs, which is, like I said, which is great. But the bottom line is the basics are absolutely 100% neglected. So yeah, Ms. Cooper, they're about 2,800 students. It's hard to say because they have stopped releasing in school board meetings their enrollment data. Every month in the superintendent report, they would release enrollment data, and they've stopped releasing enrollment data. I don't know if their numbers are going up or down. Hard to say. Hopefully with all that debt, they're going very, very, very high, very, very quickly, because they do have a lot of debt to pay off. So before we move on here, we're getting ready to move into the tax rate snapshot. We're going to finish up with the financial snapshot. And this kind of caveats back to Ms. Chumchell's question about money and why they receive more and spend more and all that. If you drive around Godly and you look at Godly ISD, you will see "We Believe Godly ISD" signs all over town. You'll see T-shirts. You'll see them in front of certain houses. There was a time when you saw big banners in front of businesses. If you go to the website, you'll see "We Believe Godly ISD" all over it. They hashtag "We Believe Godly ISD." So what is "We Believe Godly ISD"? May 2021, Godly ISD passed a $168 million bond. They built an elementary school, a basketball arena, and a football stadium. CTE program, sorry. CTE. They weren't supposed to call another bond until 2026. You can go to Godly ISD, the bond website, and if you dig deep in there, it clearly states the timeline, not till 2026. But 1 year later, in March of 2022, the superintendent broke some bad news that they would have to call another bond in 2024. Sometime between March 2022 and May 2023, they decided they need to call one in 2023 for $900 million. Growth had slowed. Growth had slowed down. There was still growth, but it had slowed down compared to 2021. So shortly thereafter, and if you go back to when the "We Believe Godly ISD" started, you will clearly see it begin to pop up over and over. And they would interview teachers. They would interview staff. We open records, the receipts and the payments for what that was costing taxpayers. So the question basically was, how much is Godly ISD spending of taxpayer money to make you feel good about Godly ISD? So Godly ISD has people that work in social media. Godly ISD has a communications director on payroll. These are paid people that take pictures, that put stuff on websites, that tell you what's going on in the school district. So they have paid employees to do this. But we reached out during the election and says, how much money is Godly ISD spending to make the average citizen feel good about the ISD? We've received 3 receipts. $143,000 of taxpayer money was spent to make you feel good about the bond and feel good about Godly ISD. $143,000. One receipt right here for $27,750 for public engagement and promotion of district successes. $27,750. Public engagement and promotion of district successes. That makes you feel good about your district. Another receipt. Public education effort. $49,250. Here's my favorite one. This one was signed by Superintendent Rick Deere. This was paid to Huckabee, the architect. We actually paid Huckabee $66,000 for them to promote the bond that they would get paid to enact through architecture and construction. Do you pay Chevrolet to market their vehicles to you? Does that make any sense to anybody? $143,000 of taxpayer money spent to do nothing more than make you feel good about the district for close to a year to try to convince you to go into debt for another $900 million. That's your bad leadership. Teachers, that should have went to curriculum. That should have went to tutors. That should have went to reading intervention. That should have went to math intervention. Instead, it went to mailing people stuff to make them feel better about their ISD when they already have people on paid staff to do it. Taxpayer money. So now we're going to go on to tax rates here. Show's going quicker than I wanted it to. It always does. Taxes. Right now, the ISD is going through budget workshops. All of them are. And basically, there's two ways to approach a budget workshop as an elected official. An elected official can do one of two things. They can say, give us your budget and justify why you're doing it. Or they can say, this is your budget and you need to figure out how to operate within it. Godley's going through this right now. Cities are going through this. It's just that time of year. Appraisals passed in the spring. The challenging period's over. So now they're getting the available pot of money to draw from, and they're beginning to work their budgets. We're going to go over 3 years here. Fiscal year 2020, fiscal year 2021, and fiscal year 2022. We're going to go over the last 3 years, and we're going to refer to what's called the Notice of Public Meeting to discuss budget and proposed tax rates. This is a mandatory posting that every entity that taxes anybody has to post before they set their tax rates. This will be done in August. It'll be done at a school board meeting. They won't mail it to you. It won't be on pretty purple and gold flyers. They won't pay $143,000 to make sure you're aware of this. They will not do that. And I'm about to tell you why. Fiscal year 2020. There's three main things that you want to look at on these. The M&O maintenance and operations rate, that's the day-to-day operating amount of money that the school district needs. The INS, which services debt, that's bond debt, and the expenditures of the school. So in fiscal year 2020, so this is passed in August 2020, the maintenance and operation budget actually decreased 1.21%. The debt management increased 11.20%, and expenditures increased 0.63%. Those are actually relatively really good. Their M&O went down a little bit. Their debt went up a little bit. That was mainly from the 2015 bond for the original high school. This is before the 2021 $168 million athletic bond that they just passed. And their expenditures relatively didn't go up too much. However, for all those out there that want to say bonds do not affect taxes, I want you to listen to the next 2 years. May 2021, $168 million was added to Godley's debt. Maintenance and operations went up 17.8%. Interest and sinking went up 50.4%. 50.4. Pass a bond, debt maintenance goes up. And expenditures went up 23%. Fiscal year 22, maintenance and operations went up 12%. Interest and sinking, that's the bond debt, went up 32.5%. And expenditures went up 16%. So in 3 years, going from the year before a bond was passed to the 2 years after a bond was passed, maintenance and operation increased 28.66%. Expenditures increased 40.19%. Obviously, if you're going to add facilities, you add a school, you're going to add a principal, you're going to add assistant principals, you're going to add teachers, you're going to add electric. Understandable. Interest and sinking went up 94.17%. 94% in 3 years. Debt maintenance went up. Now, here's the kicker. Some of that time, your tax rate went down. Well, how does that happen? Well, let's talk about that. 2020, the average value of home in Godley was $187,000. They passed a tax rate, maintenance and operations of 0.96. That was a 1 cent reduction in tax rate. So they reduced your tax rate 1 cent. The average home in Godley in 2020 was $187,000, and it increased taxes on those homes $576. Godley knew this. Godley knew they were raising taxes $576,000 on the average home. Now, they tell you they're reducing your tax rate, and they tell you they're managing money well. But they knowingly raised your taxes $576. 2021, they knowingly raised the taxes on the average home $224,000. Or the average home was $224,000. They knowingly raised your tax rate $591. Now, if growth pays for growth, because 2021 was after the 2021 bond was passed, if growth paid for growth, why are you paying $591 more a year in taxes? They set a tax rate based on how much money they need, not on what your house appraises for. If they needed less money, they could set a lower tax rate or a no new revenue rate. If their budget increases at a faster rate than appraisals and a faster rate than growth, you will pay more taxes. That is a budget issue. That is not an appraisal issue. If your appraisals go down and their budget goes up, you will pay more taxes. It will just be a different tax rate. Their budget is increasing faster. 2022, the average home was $272,000, and they raised taxes on the average home $447 a year. So a 3-year increase. The average home price in Godley was about $250,000. And in 3 years, they knowingly raised the average taxes $1,615 on the average home. Most homes now coming into Godley are between $400,000 and $600,000. So on a $500,000 home, over 3 years, they knowingly raised your taxes $3,230. $3,230, correct. Their budget dictates what rate they need to apply, and their budget is increasing at a faster rate than appraisals, hence why you're paying more taxes. Don't ever buy into the tax rate versus taxes shell game they play. It's a budgeting issue. It's an expense issue. Appraisals create a pot of money. Their budget dictates how much of that money they take from you. Period. So we've only got a couple minutes left. We're going to talk a little bit about school board trustees. And I hope you're listening, and I hope somebody tells you to come on here and listen to the school board trustees. And the first thing I'm going to do, 2 of you deserve props. Ms. Heiner, Ms. Abbott, thank you for allowing Ms. Olson to speak. Thank you for questioning the validity of executive session. I hope to see you do that. This is an olive branch. Seriously. You're being misled in a lot of ways. I encourage you to get out there and look at other districts and how they operate, because Godley ISD is not the norm. Whether it's a free speech issue, whether it's how much money you spend, whatever it is, they're not the norm, I promise you. I am disappointed in the school board that they're so athletically focused. It is awesome that you guys put a lot of time into the Athletic Booster Club. It's awesome that you guys put so much time into athletics, and there's value in that. But you can't do it at the expense of your core academic values. You can't. Yes, you're in a volunteer position, but your job is overseeing and management of that senior administration, especially the superintendent. Don't get wrapped around the raw of football, baseball, softball, soccer, basketball. Don't do it. You have to focus on those basics. Do you have any idea how many people might come talk to you about how bad the academics are? No, because your BED local policy prevents it. A large number of people, more than any other time, have chosen to put Miss Kayla Lane in school board. And the first thing you do is kneecap her, duct tape her mouth, silence her, prevent her from bringing the people that elected her to be able to speak to you. You cannot have BED local policy as it sits if you're a supporter of free speech. At least come out and say that you just don't want to hear anything negative, and that's why you have it. At least then we can move on, and at least then you'd have that respect. You can't say you support free speech with BED local policy in place. And you darn sure can't say you respect the voters when the voters just sent somebody down there to do a job and fill a role, and you kneecap her day one. These are local policies that you can change. 3 of you can put it on the agenda next time and have it fixed for the meeting afterwards. I challenge you. Go look at other districts and see what the norm is in other districts. Because what you're doing is not the norm. What you're doing is anti-American. Why are you elected to represent the people if you don't want to hear from them? The tool's in place. Next week, we're going to talk about Godley using oppressive trespassing techniques. That was next on the list. We didn't get to it today, but we will. Breakdown coming back at you next week, folks. Hold these ISDs accountable. A lot of money. They're your kids. Advocate for them. Have a good week.
This is the voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio.
Let's be honest. Wheelchairs are heavy, bulky, and ugly. If you carry a wheelchair in your car to take care of a loved one, you know how hard it is getting that clunky, old-style wheelchair in and out of your car.